Thanks for joining us behind the bins. I'm Kate.
And I'm Tim, and we're aiming to lift the lid on the world of waste.
So every week we're going to pose a question to our guests and listeners to find out what goes on behind the bins. So what's this week's question, Tim?
This week's question, and it's been asked to me several times over the years, is it all goes to the same place anyway, doesn't it?
It's interesting that feels more of a statement than a question, doesn't it? Because residents sort of have this assumption sometimes.
It's an accusation.
It's an accusation, for sure.
Yes. And I think the common scenarios, you see it on Facebook or on other social media channels that are available. You see it on the internet. The truck came, both types of bin went to the back of the same truck. It's all a complete con. It's a waste of time. Why am I having to segregate my waste only for the council just to tip it all back in the same place? You and I know, because we work in the industry, it doesn't all go to the same place. But I think the question is, how do we prove that and get that message out to everybody else?
Mm-hmm. And I think when you do get those news stories, that's so much more interesting to people. I remember a documentary a few years ago and they were picking food waste bags or recycling bags with district council names on out of a massive landfill in India or somewhere like that. And that message travels really well. The fact that the council have sent it to the right place and documented it really well is quite boring. No one really cares about that bit, do they?
No, and what people don't see behind the bins is that there's this enormous supply chain of where that waste goes to. And once the council have done their bit very properly, there's still a lot going on behind there that can go wrong. Mm. And even if it does go wrong sometimes, which any system does, it doesn't actually mean that the whole thing is a con or isn't working 99.9% of the time.
I think the other thing is that there's so many different types of waste processing that sometimes it might go to the same place, but that doesn't mean that it ends up in the same place. So, Barnsley, for example, their facility processes lots of waste and recovers quite a lot of material from that. So it going to the same place doesn't mean it's all getting chucked in a hole somewhere.
No, and even if it's going in the same vehicle, those vehicles, it may not be obvious, but a lot of twin pack vehicles, you can put a blue bin and a green bin on the same vehicle. The vehicle's split in half, so you're still being collected separately, just on the same truck. There's also edge cases where, for example, a truck breaks down, you still need to collect the recyclate, but you don't have a recycling vehicle anywhere close by. It just makes sense on those occasions to put it in the refuse. That material won't get recycled, but actually it's 1 week out of the year where it goes wrong. It doesn't undermine the entire process.
Yeah, it's pretty minimal when those kind of things do happen. And I think, the basic part of it is that councils can't get away with just doing what they want. There are processes in place, everything is documented and recorded, and these numbers are really readily available. If you want to know what the recycling rate is for your council, you can go and find it really easily. Like I say, it's not interesting and sexy to look at those numbers, but waste data flow, all of that legislation around making sure that it's really clear what happens to our waste, it's there if people want to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, there is a licence for every waste carrier who's moving waste around. Every single movement is documented, and all of that data does go together in a really dull, boring, complex form to central government. It's audited by the Environment Agency. It's all very transparent. And actually, we've got more legislation coming in now around digital waste tracking, which is going to make that process even more real time, because things will be reported within a day or two of them happening. So that whole process is going to get even more transparent in the near future.
What's this week's fun fact, Tim?
Well, my fun fact is not really about waste movements, but it is about some big numbers. I'm going to ask you, how many litter bins are there in the UK? And this is question 1 of 2.
I always feel like I'm having an exam or something. You're testing my waste credentials here and knowledge. How many litter bins in the UK? I honestly can't even work out how to guess that. 3 million.
Okay. So my answer is actually a reasonable estimate because nobody actually knows. Mm-hmm. Every local authority knows how many bins they have.
Do they?
No. They have a rough idea how many bins they have. If you add it all together, you get to a figure that's around 500,000 litter bins in the UK. So that's question 1 of 2. The UK has a population of about 70 million people. Japan's population is 120 million people.
Right.
How many litter bins do you think they have?
I'll stick with 3 million.
You're about 3 million out. They don't have any.
What?
Litter bins are not a thing in Japan.
What happens?
People look after their own waste and they take it home. People carry around their own little litter bags. It's one of those fantastic cultural things where they just don't know what a litter bin is.
That's so interesting. And that, we see quite a lot when we're looking at overflowing litter bins and whose responsibility is that. I remember making a LinkedIn post last Edinburgh Fringe. Obviously, that is such a crazy time for the city where they have, thousands and thousands of visitors that they don't have any other time. And why aren't you putting more bins out? Why aren't you collecting them more often? But actually, why is someone taking their can, bottle, McDonald's bag and just sticking it on top of this massive overflowing bin? That idea that people should take more responsibility for their own waste is, really interesting. So I guess this week is working on making the data around waste and what happens to it a bit more interesting, and I think he's succeeding.
I'm very excited. We've got an even bigger geek than me on the podcast. So I'm really delighted about this guest.
Welcome to the podcast, Tom Passmore from Dsposal. Do you want to start off telling us a little bit about what you guys do?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Tom. And so Dsposal's been around about a decade now. And put simply, we build tech for people that interact with waste. So that could be a waste management company, or that could be like a complex waste producer, like someone from local authorities or the NHS, science parks, things like that. And then we just build the technology and then really help everyone understand the data that's coming out of the technology at the other end. So that's what we try to do, is make sure that all the information going into the system, the users can get out at the other side and really understand stuff about their waste.
So for local authorities, what data do they actually have to collect? Do you know?
So local authorities kind of have to collect all the same stuff other waste producers and or kinds of waste management companies have to collect. So they have to know where their waste came from, who moved that waste around, might be them, might be third parties, and then what happened to their waste once it arrived at a disposal site. And then they need to kind of know that throughout the whole of their chain as part of waste duty of care. On top of that, local authorities then have to do a piece of work called around waste data flow, which I think unanimously across all local authorities, it's a loved practice. Like they love knowing everything about their waste, where it goes, and then inputting it into the technology that I think's been around before I was born, or at least it certainly looks like that anyway. And then, and then from there, they kind of get this whole understanding about where their waste goes. Is it overseas? Is it somewhere else? And then it's all just joined up into this delicious waste data set that they can then interact with and play with.
So it's interesting that local authorities have got all of this data, because one of the things that does get thrown up in the press and in the bottom half of the internet where the nasty comments are is we do all this work on recycling and it all just goes to the same place. It all gets landfilled, which is a common, complete misconception. We know it's not true, but the general public quite often do not.
Yeah, and to be honest, so I actually don't fully understand where that comes from, other than just people trolling. So, I mean, 15 years ago, I worked as a door knocker for local authorities, like West Dorset and then South Derbyshire, talking to the public. And again, there was all this misconception then as well. It's just like, oh, what's the point? If I just put it into my black bin, then it'll go and just goes get landfilled. So like if I put it in my blue box, it'll just get landfilled as well. And it's just like, no, there's legitimate contracts in place, and actually quite a lot of legality around it. So no, it doesn't just, oh, well, my mate Joe knows that he's seen it. And what happens is this. Oh, okay, cool. Where's Joe? Oh, he's away. Can't talk to Joe. And it's just like, no, that's not what happens. Honestly, if you talk to the local authorities, they do have open days. Some of them do have open days. So you can go to a transfer site and see actually what happens. It's not a black box that no one knows what's happening. It's actually quite heavily regulated. So people do know what happens. And that data gets pushed back into the open so people can look at it and investigate it. But for some reason, people then don't do that.
You sort of mentioned that local authorities have a bit of a challenge with waste data flow. What do you think are the pros and cons of the current system, and what do you think they could do better?
One of the things I think could be better is it all could be a little bit more automated. So at the moment I think it's generally, not in all local authorities, but I think it's given to a person that's never done it before as kind of a hazing exercise. And they have to kind of import this, get all the information, go through it, put it into the system, and then hope it's right almost, because there's no kind of instant feedback from waste data flow to kind of give people any analysis. So one of the things that when we build tech, or what the tech that we use that we like, it's you've done this piece of work, here's a quick report based on that, so that you can go, oh, this is slightly different than last time, or this has changed, or over the last 15 years since you've been using waste data flow, as this local authority, you can see this information and this has changed a little bit. If it was more of a reporting tool like that for the local authorities, I think that'd be really interesting. I think people would then get a lot out of it if they had that reporting layer that sat on top of it as part of the technology. The other thing I think, which would just make the whole process nicer, would be that it was a little bit more automated from their tipping software or their contracts that they have in place or their in-cab solutions. So that data exists already. It should, in theory, it could just flow straight through to waste data flow, and that just kind of comes out, so that, again, it's more of a reporting suite from kind of transactional data rather than a job in itself. We're very pro kind of the idea of reporting as a byproduct of what you do. So reporting shouldn't be a task in itself. It should always be a byproduct of the day-to-day work that you're doing. And I think that would make waste data flow. And then the data quality around, data quality is interesting, but I think then people would investigate and be like, oh, that's a really weird thing. Why is that the case? And then kind of go on from there.
Whenever I've sort of looked at waste data flow, it does feel like it's 90% data entry and 10% data coming back out. And by the time you spent 90% of your time putting the data in, the last thing you really want to do is actually look at it again. So yeah, that automation where you could actually turn waste data flow into an almost real-time resource to get information and make decisions from, it's the very opposite of that at the moment, isn't it? It's just a sink for data, and it is a chore.
So if you come across some of your customers being really surprised by the data that's being presented back to them?
I think the surprise comes from, we've had a feature for a long time to be able to do this, but you can basically press a button and get your off-takings, and where you can get your received data and your removed data from the click of a button. And so one of our clients was just like, oh, is this something you can do? I was like, yeah, we've already got a button, just click that and you can get this information off. And then she was just like, wow, this used to take me 8 hours to do, and this has taken me 5 minutes, including this phone call. I was like, yep, you've had that for a while. And yeah, so that's one of the things is the speed, as in if you do that transactional work well, your day-to-day job well, using tech, inputting the data, all of that can just slip out of the system and be correct. And if it's not correct, it's because of a data inputting issue, which is a different issue, which needs to be looked at as well. So again, it just compounds. It's like compound interest. The more you do it, the better you do it, the more value you get out of it as you go along. Other things is just, one thing data I don't think does very well is answer why questions. It kind of surfaces why questions really well. Why did that move to the other side of the country for that process? But actually, those why questions you can kind of only surface if you do good bits of visualization. And I think one of the things we've been looking at is using different ways of visualizing waste data interrogator and waste data flow data that kind of make people go, why are we sending that to there?
I think one of the things I've found recently is that visualization is really good. But then almost the completely opposite end of the spectrum is this thing where the UI becomes unnecessary because you ask AI and just say to AI, go and have a look at my waste data flow data and tell me what I should be looking at, and give it a really open-ended question and see what comes back.
One of the things, AI likes to lie. And it likes to lie when it doesn't fully understand the question. I don't think it's lying. It's just, it's like going, oh, I don't have a full understanding of that. I'll join this stuff together to make a better picture of that. And so what can happen is when you ask AI questions, especially about waste, it goes, oh, I don't have a complete picture of England. So what I'll do is I'll use this knowledge from like northern Italy and I'll drag that in there as well. Oh, and I'll use this little bit of knowledge I have about, I don't know, South Korea, and I'll pull that in as well. And this is your answer. And it's just like, I appreciate you working really hard and burning all of those trees to do that. But you can't jigsaw piece together the different legislations. Like, you need to do this. So to get to where the AI knows what it is doing, we have to kind of create these, and this is what we're doing at the moment, is like these semantic layers in between. So it's just like, when you say waste stream, in this context, that's what a waste stream is. So you have to keep training the data, not on the data itself, because it can do that. It needs to understand that metadata around each one of those fields and the context around that as well, because even just in our 4 nations, it means different things across those boundaries. And AI is stupid, even though it's called artificial intelligence. It's artificial first, and then it's intelligent afterwards.
I think there's definitely an opportunity here as we go into LGR, and councils are trying to merge their operations over a period of years and trying to understand, 5 or 6 different waste data flow data sets, and then say, what should the new LGR be doing with its waste? And it's now going to be an amalgam of the 5 or 6 former districts. What does our waste look like now? We put it all together. If you define those contexts well, then potentially you could have non-technical people asking questions and getting reasonably sensible answers back out, which I think takes us full circle back to helping the public and those officers that are not in the waste industry understand what's going on.
100%. Like, there is a world in the future where people will be asking like a chatbot or Siri or other technology platforms exists to ask questions of what happens, and it will be able to, like, the technology will be like, well, if you put paper in your bin, I know where you live, I know what your round is, I know that transfer site, this is what happens to your waste. Like, this is what happens to your waste.
And one of the other sort of little hobby horses I've got with local authorities is their data is boring. Gas bills are boring, waste is boring, planning applications are boring. Everything that councils do is pretty boring. However, people like Octopus Energy have exactly the same problem, because gas bills are boring. They put an octopus on their app so you can spin the wheel. And I've never, ever won a damn thing on the octopus spin up, but I do go on there every now and again and spin the wheel, see if I win anything off the octopus. And while I'm there, I'll look at my gas bill. I don't go to Octopus Energy to look at my gas bill. I just see it on my phone. I'll give the octopus a go. Why don't councils do that? Take the boring service and put an octopus on the front of it, or a free sausage roll. Waste is boring. What it needs is sausage rolls and octopuses.
Obviously, I'm speaking to the choir in this room a little bit, but like waste data is not as boring as gas or electricity data. My waste here in Sefton, so I live in Sefton on the west coast. All of that goes up to go for energy recovery up in Teesside. I'm like, that's a long way. Oh, but it isn't that bad because it goes on rail. Like, oh, that's interesting. I completely forgot there's actually other ways of moving commodities around than just the road. Oh, so actually it's not that far when you think about, and like the amount of waste that can be carried in on a transport freight trains, so much more. So it is like you start, I don't know, for me, I'm like, ooh, it's about education and about getting people involved. Like aluminium cans, really easy. If you recycle aluminium cans, the chances are it's going to Warrington. And then they basically send a 25-ton ingot over to Germany. Like, that's interesting. Like, oh, you can see this on that ingot only exists because you did recycling. Like, that is always going to be more interesting than gas in electricity.
And I think people are more interested than we sort of give them credit for, because they do say, well, why is it all going here? People do sort of have an interest, and a lot more people, again, than we probably give credit for, have got that environmental interest these days and do want to be sure that things are being recycled. People have got concerns about, climate change and all the environmental stuff that's going on, and, how much resource we're using. And I think more people than you'd expect would get quite excited about the data side of things if it was available for them to look at. That's been really interesting, Tom, and I do feel like we could chat about this all day. It's obvious that you're really excited about data, as are we. And yeah, it's really interesting to think about what we can do with that and how we can make it sort of accessible and interesting to more and more people. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you both. I had a really good time, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Really interesting stuff. And Kate, do you think we've answered the question? It all goes to the same place, doesn't it?
I think we have answered the question. I think it doesn't all go to the same place. And not only that, it is easy to find out where it does go. It's pretty well documented where waste goes in the UK. So it's not this massive black hole of unknowns that some people sort of insinuate that it is.
No, and I think I'm quite excited just to dig into it a bit deeper and see what we can use that data for.
So what's caught your eye this week, Tim?
As you will no doubt remember, we ran a 10K the other day. And one of the things that caught my eye this week was the backlash or debate about the number of people throwing their bottles to the curb. So, Kate, did you throw your water bottle to the curb?
Well, I did, under the assumption that there was a cleanup team that was dealing with that. I sort of, wasn't going to carry it for the whole 10K. Didn't actually drink any of the water. I just threw it over my head because it was so hot. But yeah, there were piles of bottles all along the gutter, and I just made the assumption that that was sort of by design. It was, I'm not a regular on the race scene. So I don't know whether that is the normal thing to do.
Well, I think you look at the number of bottles that were at the side of the road, it is the normal thing to do. And yes, I think technically it is littering, but in the context of that event, I always throw my bottles onto the floor. Along with thousands of other bottles that are then, as you say, cleaned up as part of the race organisers' duties after the event. So, yes, I did sort of question whether I should be doing that. There were some bins on the coast, but it was never clear whether there was going to be a bin. You don't stop, drink your water, then put it in the bin. Mm-hmm. You run with it, and then when you've fed up a carrying it or you've drunk it all, if there happens to be a bin, you'll drop it. But that's what caught my eye this week.
I did see a social media post on that topic of someone that lived locally that was complaining about all the bottles that were left. So that did make me feel quite guilty that maybe it wasn't all cleared up by the organisers as I had thought. So I will do a spot of litter picking to make up for the guilt.
Go out now and pick up a plastic bottle just to balance the yin and yang. Your turn. What caught your eye this week?
Weirdly, and we definitely haven't talked about this, mine is also about plastic bottles.
Oh, okay.
So the thing that caught my eye was how few bottles I drink from that don't have tethered lids. There was a phase where all the lids seemed to be tethered, and it's an EU thing that they have to be. It is not legal in the UK that they need to have the tethered lids, but I seem to be seeing quite a lot of that, more of that now. So I guess that the bottles that we do see that are tethered probably being manufactured in one place and used throughout Europe. But it's interesting that it isn't something that we seem to be kind of progressing with in the UK, despite the fact that they are a huge item in terms of littering on beaches and rivers. And I wonder whether it is something we will see in the future.
They're a good idea. Yes, they do poke you in the eye when you're taking a sip of your drink. But I think that's quite easily fixable once you've learned.
I think you get used to it quite quickly, don't you?
You do, and it does stop that cap becoming loose. It does stop it, becoming a very small and unrecyclable bit of plastic, that clogs up machines or gets lost. So yes, I think a good idea and one we should carry on doing.
So next time we're going to be talking about what happened to weekly collections.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. This week, if you want to get in touch, we are on behindthebins@bartekmunicipal.com. You can find Tim and I both on LinkedIn. We'd really love to hear about, if you're listening, what you think of the podcast.
If you're listening, please let us know. Someone must be.
And what topics you think that we should cover. Thanks for listening.